All right, guys, it is time to talk some sports. It's time to talk some Super Bowl. And joining me to do so is the man who always joins me whenever I need a chat about sports. It is my former Paddy's New Yacht comrade and a person who, since the last time he appeared here on page 180, has become the foremost analyst of darts in the entire country. And as well he should, because if you listened to page 180, you would have heard him tip a little known prospect by the name of Luke Littler, who's now a superstar, going to be filling the Tree Arena next month. David Kent joining us back of the Irish Examiner. You're very welcome. How does it feel now being Ireland's foremost darts critic?
I mean, it was described during the World Championship to me that I was like the Brian Kerr of darts. I still have that as my Twitter header. What greater compliment. The only thing I will pick you up on there is that Luke Littler probably wasn't as little known as like Rob Cross was. People were
Yeah.
probably saying left, right, center, but not in Ireland, where it was like, oh, the casuals are like, oh, who's a 16-year-old or whatever. I'm like, yeah, you'll get to know him fairly quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, my Arsenal tip didn't quite go as well, but we won't mention that. I'm still on it. Like again, South Africa winning the rugby, Italy winning the Euros, Arsenal winning the match play. Doing all right for myself.
That's it. We only focus on the things you call correctly, and we forget
Yes.
everything we say that's wrong. Speaking
We
of
used to have
which,
a podcast about all of our wrong things. So like what's
yeah,
no one listens to that now.
yeah, we're giving ourselves credit these days. So yeah, that's it. Let's talk Super Bowl, because this Sunday we go to the Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. The halftime show, you've got Usher, no doubt Lil Jon and Ludacris not far behind him. You've got Jim Nance and Tony Romo, the CBS commentary team, up for the task. I personally am going to be in the Woolshed, our old friends from the Low Blows days, for yet another Super Bowl. I cannot wait. The San Francisco 49ers taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. But before we get into some Super Bowl chat, Kento, it was a postseason of mixed emotions for both of us, of course. My Philadelphia Eagles, after starting 10-1, just that was it. They just said that's the season, we're done, and they just kind of closed up doors, had a spectacular meltdown. And Nick Sirianni, who this time last year we were previewing the Super Bowl as a potential Super Bowl winner, now was getting his job speculated about. So a vast change of fortunes for the Eagles, but a very different kind of surprise for yourself as a Green Bay Packers fan, with Jordan Love catching fire at exactly the right time and nearly getting them there. How are you feeling now after that postseason run? Because I don't think anyone was ready for that postseason from the Packers. I think you arrived a bit earlier than a lot of people expected, but very positive signs.
Absolutely for the future, but it is still absolutely sickening. I like again, I remember saying it to pretty much everyone that I knew when it was all you're going to Dallas, and it's like that's not an issue. We win in Dallas. We win in the big games in Dallas, so it's fine. And lo and behold, we were quite comfortable. But then the Niners came where it's like, you know what, if we can keep it within 5 or 6, I'll be happy with that. If we put up a good show, I'll be happy with that. And then you saw that we were whatever up by was it 6 or 7 going into the last quarter, and it's just like we've seen this before because this exact scenario happened a few years back with Aaron Rodgers under center. Like again, uh, different quarterback, same result, but and like if you'd offered, I think if you'd offered every Green Bay Packers fan at the start of the season, you're going to be leading in the fourth quarter in the playoffs in the second round of the playoffs, you would have snapped your hand off it. And like again, the amount of young players that have stepped up as well, where it's like you got 20, 23, 24, 22 all over the pretty much all over the offensive sheet. It's hugely positive for the future. And look again to have the like everyone was expecting the drop off in quality. Okay, look, we went from Favre to Rodgers, and there was no massive drop off. Like if it's a little bit with Jordan Love, it's fine. Then you're suddenly looking at it going, well, he's been sitting under Aaron Rodgers, who was sitting under Brett Favre, and there's two of the greats of all time at quarterbacks. Not the worst position to be in because again, as you say, like he's arrived and everything is pointing up despite how the season ended in sickening style.
Yeah, well, look, yeah, but at the same time, like you said, you were there, and it is sickening because you were so close. And again, like Jordan Love making the impact that he made in the high pressure situation, that's huge. So again, yeah, but like, isn't it the most? How did we not see it coming? Just because Aaron Rodgers wasn't there, it's like they beat Dallas, they lose to San Francisco, and it's typical
Every
Packers.
time.
But yeah, exactly, without fail. But they're not unfortunately here. Neither are my Eagles. Eagles never even ended up close to it. But it has been a weird season. Like, if you even look at the Eagles run alone, like starting 10-1, the 1 seed, looking the best team in the league, and then just nowhere to be found when it comes to the business end of the postseason. It's been a weird season. And in the end, we kind of expected a bit of a random Super Bowl at times where, like, could the Texans get here? Like, could the Bills end up going on a mad run? But in the end, we find ourselves with two of the most successful postseason teams of recent times, the Chiefs and the 49ers. Is this a fitting Super Bowl for you? Do you feel like we've got the right Super Bowl, or do you feel like this is just kind of one of those jumbled messes?
I think just based off how close both of the teams were to not being there, it is a little bit of a jumbly one where you can't say, oh well, the Chiefs and the 49ers were the standout teams in the playoffs so far, or even in the last kind of couple of games in the build up to the playoffs as well. But as you say, in terms of success in recent years, they know how to win and they know how to get there, and that's just down to experience. And that seems to be what happened again. If you look at how they won their games in particular, um, like the only like again, I know a number of Baltimore Ravens fans who are similar to me, looking at it going, we had them. We could have been like we could and probably possibly should have been there, but again, the Chiefs, what was it, 4 and 6 years now, I think,
Yeah.
isn't there something like that? So, like you can't deny that they know how to get the job done in the when it comes to knockout football. And as you say, the Niners have been there before and done that as well. So, um, it was a bit of a mess of a season. Like, don't get me wrong, not a bad mess. Like
Mm.
it's been one of the more entertaining NFL seasons, just in terms of the amount of storylines, even the storylines coming into this one as well, now into the Super Bowl. So we can't complain as NFL fans overall. But yeah, just I wouldn't say it's the one we probably deserve, but it's the one we got, so we'll work with it.
The more I think about this, the more I like the matchup though, because you kind of look at the advanced metrics and the 49ers were the second in total DVOA in the league. The Chiefs were fifth, and they were the only two teams outside of the Cowboys and Ravens who, again, you can kind of say as good as their regular season were, and with the Ravens as good as they were up until that championship game, kind of flopped when it mattered. So you can't really stand over either of those teams. They were the only teams who finished in the top 10 for both offense and defense on DVOA. The 49ers were just the best team in the NFC. Again, and look, that was on the card since last season when they traded for CMC. We've known this is coming. We know they were going to be a force to be reckoned with. I feel the Eagles last year had our run, and we got lucky in a way with the health of the 49ers in the championship game. But this was coming and we knew it. So I've got no problem with the 49ers being here. The Chiefs are a little tougher to swallow because we've seen them be mortal this year for the first time, perhaps under Patrick Mahomes. I never, but at the same time, I kind of look around and I'm like, well, who else? Like, I never fully believed in the Ravens. It never felt real that they were going to go to the Super Bowl and dominate as we thought. Like, everyone was writing it and they were saying the 49ers Ravens, and the Ravens stomped them on Christmas Day. But I just never felt it personally. I did like the idea of the Bills going on an improbable run of the table from the brink of playoff elimination all the way to Vegas. But for me, even if I don't particularly like it, I'm an Eagles fan. The Super Bowl ending is very fresh in my memory. We felt like we had it at halftime, and then Mahomes just did what Mahomes does. It does feel right for the Chiefs to be here. They are the dynasty of the NFL following Brady and Belichick. And even if we don't like them at times and they're fun to root against, dynasties are good for sport. You think of Brady and Belichick and the Pats. You think of Phil the Power Taylor in our darts. You think of Man United in the 90s. These dynasty teams are kind of a benchmark to measure other great teams up against. And if the Niners are to win here, it feels like they should have to go through Patrick Mahomes in Kansas to do so and right the wrong of their last kind of failed Super Bowls. Whereas if Mahomes wins, it only feels right that he do so. And it feels right that these dynasty teams beat the best teams of the day and stand up to the stiffest challenges. So I like it personally, but again, from a Chiefs standpoint, it has been unsatisfying. And the season itself has kind of been, for me, a tale of two seasons or two halves. So like the 49ers in the regular season looked absolutely unstoppable en route to the NFC 1 seed, except for that brief period where they had injuries and a few kind of disappointing losses. But even then, they were kind of with asterisks because of the injuries. Whereas, but then they got tested in the offseason in both games by the Packers and Lions. The Chiefs looked extremely mortal, like we said in the regular season, to the point that they played their first ever away postseason games under Mahomes. But then since then, they've looked like the Chiefs we remembered. It's like, what crisis? There was no crisis. We're the fucking Chiefs. He's Patrick Mahomes. He's Travis Kelce. He's Andy Reid. I guess kind of with that in mind and the road to the Super Bowl and how it's diverging and changing in the postseason, what, if any, of those aspects actually matter to the game on Sunday?
It was a really good analogy, that one, because and it reminds me very much of the Limerick Hurlers now with the modern kind
Mm,
of GA structure, where it's like, if you don't get them in Munster, good luck to you, because once they hit Croke Park, game over for everyone else. I just Yeah, it's like as you say, as you said, the Niners, like, again, no, even when they went through their kind of down patch, it was still a case of, look, they can afford to lose a couple because they're just going to get back to where they were. Now, they have had bigger tests, I would say, as you said, in terms of the Packers and the Lions game. They weren't excellent against the Packers, but they still managed to get the job done. Whereas against the Lions, I thought they were better on offense, they're better overall. It's just the Lions and Dan Campbell just went, right, we're going to go for everything. I think that was the kind of game they preferred.
mm.
Whereas the Packers, it was more whatever, kill the clock nice and early, good, try and kind of suffocate them in. And again, they had a bit more of a test. Whereas, like I said, the Chiefs have just looked incredibly comfortable again, and the Ravens was, again, I'm going to use the word suffocate because that's all they did. It was like, right, we're Patrick Mahomes, we're Travis Kelce, we're Andy Reid, doesn't care who's in front of him. He will just play his own way, and he'll figure out a way to get through it. So, like, if I think that might be the only metric in terms of how they've looked so far. But even still, and the Super Bowl sort of one off. We've seen seasons and games before where the team that has looked rock solid in the divisional and the conference games have then not collapsed in the Super Bowl, but have not shown up what they've played like. I mean, I think off the top of my head, the Panthers and the Broncos Super
Yeah.
Bowl 50 was one of them where it was like, oh, Cam Newton, and these Panthers, and then the Broncos just went, nope, we're our defense, we Peyton Manning, see you later. It's just like that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
and again, like, it is an intriguing one, because as many people, when we had it 4 years ago, and it was not exactly the same situation, but we had Mahomes coming in as a lot younger. It's like, oh, can he get the job done? And now you're looking at him going, well, this is a guy who might well eclipse Tom Brady, given his age and given what he's already done in the game. But it is very much an intriguing one. I don't know what to read into. It's the only one I can really look at, and even, like, we'll get onto it in a few minutes. But in terms of predicting it, I'm struggling already.
Yeah. It's a tough one. Yeah, like again, and you have to remember it is a one-off game. And again, we will get into predictions, so I don't want to get too much into that, but I think that's where we have to kind of look at the crux of what matters and what doesn't. And Kento, you're more than familiar with my Super Bowl predicting formula, so but I'll bring everyone else who isn't across it when we get into that. But first off, let's get it out of the way and let's just discuss it because it's what everyone wants to discuss. Taylor Swift is going to be there on Sunday, almost definitely, even though she has her Saturday night gig in Japan for a dramatic appearance to kind of complete her takeover of all of American and indeed world culture. Like, she's just one culture. That's it. Officially, she's going to be there. Um, I'm just going to ask a nice open question for you. What are your thoughts on the kind of Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce love story, its impact on the NFL? Is it going to have any impact on the game? Or are you predicting, like, are you one of these that, I don't think you'd be a conspiracy theorist saying that the NFL want to win it, but if you are, speak now. Or do you feel that, like, we might see a proposal afterwards? What are you taking or what are you looking for from this?
There are many things that you could criticize Taylor Swift for. Being the boyfriend of, or being the girlfriend of an NFL player is not one of them. It is so far down the list. Even in the terms of things that are actually important in life. Who a celebrity decides to be in a relationship with, it's not going to impact. It doesn't impact me on a daily basis. I'm not, like, again, I've no massive issues with Taylor Swift. I'm not exactly a Swiftie, but you know what? She's fine. I'm going to see her next year. I'm going to see her in the summer. That's grand. I like the amount of angry, and again, let's call it a spade, the angry men who say,
Yeah.
"Oh, it's rigged," and "Oh, my team lost because the ref didn't want to give the Chiefs a flag because Taylor Swift is on the television." It's like, well, the Packers beat them in Lambeau, and Taylor Swift was there. So how does that fall into it? Just off the basic thing, if you think the NFL's rigged for Taylor Swift, that would mean the Chiefs would win the majority of their games, and they have lost when Taylor Swift is there. The amount of people who are now watching the NFL because of Taylor Swift, I would argue, far outweighs the amount of people who are giving out about Taylor Swift being in the NFL or being featured and being the camera cutting to Taylor Swift and like just let people live, let people enjoy things. Like why? And again, this comes back probably from my line of work as well. What is the issue with having this entirely new audience discover a sport that we've liked all our lives and that we enjoy regularly enough? And it's, let's call it, like, again, it's niche over here, obviously massive in America, but there are people who are going to be tuned in to the Super Bowl on Sunday, and it'll be their first ever Super Bowl. They probably don't even care about Usher. They don't even know who's playing the halftime. They probably don't even know half the players. But because Taylor Swift's there, they have an interest in it. They can then become a fan of it. Again, I'll bring it back a bit basic to darts as well. How many new darts fans? How many new people picked up a dart in January because they saw Luke Littler and they saw that run? And it's like, right, there's your new market. There's a new audience. How is that a bad thing?
Mm.
It's I have not have zero issues with Taylor Swift. I don't believe it has any impact on the refs. I don't believe it has any impact on the storyline. Let people enjoy things.
Yeah, I agree. Look, it's and the only thing I feel kind of angry about is all these Swifties coming in supporting the Chiefs and then they get a Super Bowl their first season. You know what I mean? I'm like, that just feels, but that's just the bitter Eagles fan in me,
It'll come back
more than
around.
anything.
Don't worry, it
Yeah,
will
that's
come
it.
back.
That's it. Yeah, but then they'll go. But no, I agree. It is a good thing. It makes it interesting. It's a really good storyline. Let's call it a spade a spade. Taylor Swift, a week after winning the Grammys, announcing her new album. And then coming out at the Super Bowl and cheering on Travis Kelce. There's going to be a million camera cuts to her. This is going to be a great TV moment. This is going to be like the Super Bowl is never on reeling on the years, but this is going to be reeling on the years because Taylor Swift is there. Do you know what I mean? It's yeah, it's just a good thing. Like let's just and it's all like you say, it's right wing men who are afraid that she's going to endorse Biden like a lot of the time, or it's bitter fans who just want to start carving their excuses early on. But it's not actually relevant to the matchup. So let's talk about the matchup itself. First off, I want to touch on the coaching battle because we're getting two of the maestros of the modern game in Andy Reid and Kyle Shanahan meeting in their second Super Bowl in 4 years, I think. 2020 was obviously the last time they met with the Chiefs emerging victorious. Who do you see having the edge here? Will Reid go in with a psychological advantage having won that and having been there, done that? Or is Shanahan going to benefit from having the hunger, from having the tools in his arsenal? And what do you think kind of the game plans would be like? How do you see all the coaching battle play out?
I think Shanahan will be approaching this kind of way like this is your opportunity to right the wrongs of 4 years ago. And he remembers that Super Bowl would say that 49ers kind of collapsed in the
Mm.
last quarter where it was like I think they had a 10-point lead going into it. And you're looking at it going, right, 10-point lead in the final quarter of Super Bowl and you blew it. Was that down to coaching nerves? Was down to inexperience? Maybe so. Whereas now it's like, right, the lights are on bright again. Everyone's watching. I think you're in a better position this time because people know what to expect and you know what to expect in the Super Bowl. But then it's like the final. It's like Andy Reid is now the final boss for many people. Where it's like the man who famously couldn't win a Super Bowl now has this generational team, this generational quarterback in this franchise, like firing on all cylinders. Where it's again, it's like when Roman Reigns' music hits at the end of a match, and it's like, oh great, you've outlasted everyone else. Here comes Andy Reid, and he's got a cheeseburger in his hand, and he's just like no risk and no biscuit. So like again, like that, I can't see them changing any of the either strategy that have got them to here so far. Depending, like it's one of the things I think was it Brian Balding used to say, where it's like if you put your entire coaching plan on one game in the regular season, you'd be seen as like you'd be a laughing stock. Whereas it's similar enough in the Super Bowl, where it's like you don't do it if you know what works, and if you think you've got what it takes on defense as well to stop what the other person's doing, because it's unlikely they're going to change, then it should be all right. But yeah, I mean, you gotta give the advantage to Andy Reid just purely off what he's done so far. But again, Shanahan, I would imagine is taking this as a way to, like I said, to go right. 4 years ago, left it behind us. Let's go fix the mess and let's go fix the right the wrongs. Again, we'll get onto the players in a minute, but it really is a fascinating one.
Yeah, I think I love the coaching battle here. And I agree that Andy Reid has the experience edge, but Kyle Shanahan and the fact that this is against the Chiefs, the fact that there's so many of the players. I know there's a lot of players that weren't in the last Super Bowl they met, but there are a lot of the nucleus of the team still there. I think his team talk writes itself. I think the motivation writes itself. I think it being Andy Reid and the Chiefs um, will mean that San Francisco will be more ready for this than perhaps the team who may have felt walking into the games against the Packers and the Lions that it was a foregone conclusion. So I don't think we're going to get a 49ers who start slow and who kind of just I don't think we're going to get the same 49ers we got, and the talent is just there. What I love about the coaching battle most is that Kyle Shanahan is Andy Reid before Andy Reid won the Super Bowl against Kyle Shanahan. He's the guy who has the best teams, has the best strategy, is innovating in terms of offense in the league, and just can't win a Super Bowl. He can't get over the line. And here he is playing Andy Reid. So there's that storyline that's set up here. And when you look and dig into this matchup, as cliched as it may feel, and as unsatisfying as it may have felt to see kind of the Lions and the Ravens get dumped out in the championship games, this is a great Super Bowl from that. You have but even beyond just the head coaches, you have Shanahan with the best offense in the league against Steve Spagnuolo's defense, which is the best defense in Andy Reid's tenure, with just 15.6 points per game allowed this season, which again, the Chiefs have always been known for offense. They're a defensive team, and that's how they're winning the postseason games. Where the 49ers do have a matchup advantage, though, is in their elite rushing offense, headed up by Christian McCaffrey, obviously. Many people calling for him to be the league MVP, though that campaign kind of died as soon as they got trounced by the Ravens. And again, it's very, very difficult for a running back to win, but he is probably the most valuable player on this team. Against the Chiefs rushing defense, which is mere mortal and was 27th in efficiency this season. Shanahan also, what makes the 49ers dangerous for me is he's found new ways to win. Like like in the playoffs beforehand and kind of the regular season, I think as well. Whenever his team were losing at halftime, I don't have the exact stat to hand, but I think it was something ridiculous, like 1-31. He won one game in 32 games whenever his team were losing at halftime. But he's
Yeah.
right at that ship now. The 49ers can come back. They've done it twice in a row. So if you think that this is Shanahan's Andy Reid moment, there's a lot to like about that. But the problem is that Andy Reid is almost, if you want to further that comparison and ask what was Andy Reid's kryptonite, it was Bill Belichick. And Andy Reid is almost Kyle Shanahan's Bill Belichick. So maybe that's what's going on here as well. I think in terms of matchup and in terms of like strategy and X's and O's and stuff like that, I think if the Chiefs are to win, they'll need to do it via defense. They'll need to bully Purdy. They'll need to get at him, and they'll need to force Brock Purdy, and they need to force him into mistakes and so on. I think they can do that with the defense. But Shanahan just has so many offensive tools in his arsenal. He's been planning for this. He has a weakness in the 49ers. There's one very glaring, massive strength for the 49ers and one very glaring weakness for the Chiefs. So it's a really finely poised matchup. And that's not even to speak about the quarterback game, because that is a huge storyline in itself. It is someone in Patrick Mahomes who is going for the GOAT record, going to be the new Tom Brady, essentially. That's what his goal is, against Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, the guy who was literally picked last in the draft and was in the MVP contention himself this season. It feels stupid to say who has the advantage between Pat Mahomes and Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy's been the better quarterback coming up to this. Maybe not in the offseason, but in the regular season, he was the better quarterback of the two. How are you looking at the quarterback battle, and where do you see the advantage lie there?
I mean, it's like you say about Purdy, Mr. M, but also was one of them. They drafted his replacement as well in Trey Lance, or let's like not replacing Garoppolo's replacement, but it's like, oh, between those two, it's going to be Purdy or Trey Lance. And now look where Trey Lance is. Did he get cut by the Cowboys? I think that's third string.
Yeah, I think
So
so.
like that's another aspect to it. In terms of like when it comes to quarterback, obviously a lot of it is what they can do when scrambling, and that's where Mahomes obviously beats him. But Brock Purdy doesn't have to really scramble because of the, as you mentioned, the offensive weapons available to him. If you're looking at the white, like the passing and the receivers in these two teams, I think it's a complete mismatch. If you take Travis Kelce out of the Kansas City Chiefs offense, you're looking at lads who might be a bit dodge on it, where it's like Rashee Rice, listen, brilliant rookie season, excellent. But then like Kadarius Toney, the story of Kadarius Toney is that like kind of sums up the Chiefs wide receiver, where he's looking at the Niners and you got Ayuk, you got Samuel, you got George Kittle, like three absolute studs. And then C Mac coming out of the backfield as well if he wants to check down or throw a screen or whatever. So like again, it's one of them fascinating ones where you've Mahomes who can do absolutely anything with the ball in his hand if he needs to. If he's scrambling right, he can throw it no look across his body. Then you've Brock Purdy who never really has to do that because he's got the weapons, he's got the good offensive line to protect him, and he's got a serious weapon of an arm as well. So it's a clash of styles where if obviously if you give Mahomes 2 seconds, anyone who's watched the quarterback series on Netflix, you can see all the thought processes behind Mahomes and how he approaches the game, and it's very much a case of, oh, listen, I can do anything, and if you give me the time to, I will hurt you. Whereas, like again, Purdy with misconsistency, where it's like, oh, again, it's very similar. Maybe not as flash, but again, he doesn't need to be when he's got the weapons available to him. Like it's like you said in the intro, it is silly on paper going, well, you've Patrick Mahomes, who is probably the next Tom Brady, and you've Brock Purdy, who definitely isn't the next Tom Brady. He's the next, I don't know, Alex Smith or something like that, possibly. But like, it's like again, in terms of, I'm talking myself into this being more of a better matchup than what I said originally now, because you're helping out here massively just by bearing it all out. But when you look at it on paper, like it's just on paper, it should be one way, but in reality, it definitely isn't.
You say Brock Purdy definitely isn't Tom Brady.
I know where you're going here.
You say that. But here's one thing that I want to look at, because we spoke there when we're kind of comparing the matchups in this Super Bowl. Okay. You spoke there about how we recently spoke when we were comparing the coaches. We said that maybe Kyle Shanahan is the equivalent to Bill Belichick, what Bill Belichick was for Andy Reid. And if Bill Belichick was the ghost of Andy Reid's Super Bowl dreams, Tom Brady was the ghost of Patrick Mahomes' playoff dreams, because Mahomes could never ever get past Brady. And he only really had this success when Brady kind of started to wind down, and they met in the Super Bowl a few years ago. Again, Kansas City Chiefs, best team in the league. Brady was just Tom Brady with the Buccaneers on his back. Who won that match? Tom Brady, every time. So for me, actually, I'm going to flip the point you just made, and I'm going to say Patrick Mahomes can never, ever be the GOAT. He can never be that, no matter what he does, no matter the numbers he puts up, because every time he played against the GOAT, and he was great in every single one of those occasions, but every time he played him, he never, ever won. Tom Brady had Mahomes in his back pocket. He can never be the GOAT. Brock Purdy, however, that still could, in theory, happen. And I'm not saying Brock Purdy's the best quarterback to ever play it. I'm not saying Brock Purdy's been better than Patrick Mahomes. I'm not going to say anything crazy like that. But I'm just saying that the Brady comp is really strong in Purdy, who, of course, as we said, is a former Mr. Irrelevant. He was drafted last in the entire NFL draft. Tom Brady wasn't drafted last, but was fairly slighted and fairly looked over. And the Patriots got great value on that draft pick. And again, I'm just saying that someone funneling that anger and building towards it. Again, like, who's the person that, like, if there's any person in the league that currently is potential Tom Brady, it actually is Brock Purdy. And Purdy as well, when you look at his metrics, he has been the better quarterback this season. He's had success throwing against every single kind of coverage, okay? When you look at the coverages that he's had to face and what he's done with it, he's finished first in the league against zone coverage, against the blitz, against play action. He's finished first in success when he's not pressured, when he has under 3 seconds to throw the ball, when he has over 3 seconds to throw the ball. He's just been elite at every stage. He has weapons around him. Yes, I don't want to, let that go unnoticed, but as well, he's done what he's needed to do. However, Mahomes is Mahomes. And his Tom Brady comparison is that regardless of if he's the best player in the regular season, regardless of if his numbers are the best, regardless if he does the best things or has the best highlights or has the best advanced metrics, he wins. He wins when it matters. He's got that track record of winning whenever he needs to, unless he plays Tom Brady. The guys who are great on paper, like Jalen Hurts last season, as much as it pains me to say this, as an Eagles fan, Mahomes just finds ways to be the best and keeps coming back no matter what. So it's a tough one, but all I'm saying is Mahomes can't be the GOAT. Brock Purdy could. I'm just saying it's still open to discussion, and that could start this Sunday. So, Kento, let's get to it, okay? I want to know your predictions. I want to know your thoughts. I want to know what do you see? And we've kind of talked through the potentials of the matchup and where the matchup sits. When you have to nail your colors to the cross, who are you picking here? Why are you picking them? What do you see as the important factors? Are you thinking about any bets or anything? Obviously, we used to speak about bets quite often on Paddy's New Yacht. How's this sitting with you? 49ers Chiefs.
I've been a convert of your kind of Super Bowl betting strategy in the last few years, and I'll let you explain that to any new listeners in a little bit. But a lot of it is based around storyline, and as much like again, it's really funny to watch it and to make these Belichick and Brady comparisons. You have the new dynasty, you have this new monster coming, where it's like, oh, who's going to step up when Brady and Belichick go, and it didn't even take their graves to be warm for the Chiefs to just go, all right, we're stepping in here. This is our thing now. But then you remember, like the big thing is 4 years ago. It's the rematch. What happens? What happens when the bad guy wins in wrestling? It comes back to the baby faces, and they eventually get the win, unless you're called Cody Rhodes. But we'll get to that, and like that's another story for another podcast. The San Francisco 49ers are not Cody Rhodes. They're not The Rock either, for that matter. Even though he introduced them in that Super Bowl 4 years ago, he did that big intro video. I am riding with the Niners here. I'm
Ooh,
going against
okay.
everything that I usually would, like in terms of I think previously on like in previous shows and in previous uh betting scenarios with other sports, it's been like go with what you know, go with what you've seen before, and you know what works. You know the Niners have been in the Super Bowl, they've won it, they've learned in the Super Bowl and lost, but they've learned from that and they've come back and won again. I just don't see them doing it here. I think the Niners have got something. I think the Niners, in terms of the prongs in the attack, like you said, Brock Purdy, very, very comfortable. C-Mac, run defense. Like the Packers did an amazing job to limit the Niners early on, but that was purely because they ran the clock down. They ran 9 minutes. They took a 9 minute drive in the first quarter. So, like again, if that had been 2 minutes, I would have been a lot concerned about C-Mac coming back against a run defense, a poor run defense like the Packers did have under Joe Barry. Then you got Kittle, then you got Samuel, then you got Ayuk, then you got Juwan Jennings, who was turned into this reliable player for him as well. And like against the Chiefs D, listen, they've been rock solid as well. Spagnoli will draw up concepts for them, but I just want. I think I've got the Niners. I don't think it's going to be a high scoring game. I can't remember what the exact line is for points. I think it's around 48. I've been looking at the under there. I know 4 years ago it was 51. Again, you can talk about how much they've scored this year. I just can't see it being that really kind of blowout, kind of back and forth one like we've seen with the Niners against the Lions. Um, I did look at the odds earlier and I saw 7-1 for a pick six for the Niners,
Ooh.
which I can see happening, and not down to Patrick Mahomes throwing a bad pass. I think Patrick Mahomes throws a good pass to one of his receivers, who, like we've seen so often this year, tips off his hands, can't catch it. Niners take it back the other way. I was around 7 or 8-1. I'll probably be sticking a fiver on that just to be smug when it happens. But I'm going with the Niners. I'm going with the Niners by maybe a field goal between like nothing. It's not going to be about 15 points, but I think maybe 3-7, one score game in favor of the Niners.
Okay. I love how we're both going off my Super Bowl betting logic, but we're going slightly different directions. Okay. So to bring anyone who doesn't know my betting logic, okay, and this is how you bet the Super Bowl, and I have a great track record. Not to brag, because there's certainly plenty of areas where I've no luck in when it comes to betting, okay? But when it comes to Super Bowl, say for last year, but that's I've got an excuse. The Eagles were in there, but it was emotionally compromised. And I wasn't in my right. It wasn't possible for me to be in the right state of mind. Now that I'm neutral, and whenever I am, I tend to do well on this, and here's why, okay? Because I recognize one thing: the Super Bowl is not a matchup about the best two teams in the NFL. And it's not about, and the team that wins it isn't the best team in the league. The team that's performed the best, that has the best players, that's the best, anything like that. We've seen it so many times over the years. The Super Bowl is a powder keg of unknowable pressure that people have to deal with. And who thrives through that kind of pressure? The people who have the motivation, who have the belief in themselves, who have that almost narcissistic feeling of a God-given right to win because they feel like they're riding a train. And like Kento hinted at there, I feel that the Super Bowl is won. It's basically a sports movie where the best story tends to win so many times. Again, you kind of brought it up there. Peyton Manning walking away into the sunset after the worst season of his life against the Carolina Panthers, who were the clear best team in the league, time and time again. The Chiefs against the Bucs. Tom Brady wins one more, proves that he can't, proves that he's better than Bill Belichick, and he wins a Super Bowl without him, despite the fact that they were playing the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, who were clearly better than that team, and Mahomes was clearly better than Brady that season. But it just works that way. And then you kind of have to look at who has the best story. What is the story that we are being told in the run up to it, which is why the question earlier on was important. So I think then you need to look at what the story this season is trying to tell us, rather than who you think the best team is when you dissect the X's and O's. And then what you do is you say to yourself, in terms of like matching up, mapping out how the matchup is going to go, you go, if that team is going to win because they have the best story, how would they do so? And that's where you get your MVP picks, and that's where you get your prop bets, and so on and so forth. And unfortunately, the story we're being told in this offseason is that the Chiefs have been challenged in a way we've never seen them being challenged before. But every single time, Reed, Mahomes, and Travis Kelce have found a way to shake it off. Every single time, without fail. The narrative we've been seeing in this playoffs is that the Chiefs continuously interrupt whatever the plan narrative is and humble the so-called best team. Okay, the Bills are going to run the table. They're going to come back. It's going to be amazing. Josh Allen finally going to get a Super Bowl moment after we thought he was on the brink of elimination. No, the Chiefs neutralized that shit. Lamar Jackson, the league MVP. They've had the best season. They've been the best team. They killed the 49ers on Christmas Day. The Ravens are unstoppable until they met the Chiefs. It doesn't matter what we think or what we want to happen. The Chiefs are just the best team, in the same way that it didn't matter when Brady and Belichick were doing it back in the day, and they just won. Whether, again, Brady against the Legion of Boom in Seattle, the Legion of Boom, the best team in the league, unstoppable defense until they met Tom Brady. This is the way it happens time and time again. We've seen this all over and over, and they find ways to win because we are living in the Pat Mahomes and Andy Reid era. I'm taking the Chiefs to cover in my bet, but I also think that they'll win. In terms of if they are to win, they do it by limiting the 49ers offense. So again, similar to you, I'm taking the under on this, although I think it's going to be a close one. It's under 47.5. I'm going to take that as a double with the cover. I don't see Mahomes losing, but I don't see how he wins if it becomes a shootout, because again, the 49ers just have more weapons. So again, if the Chiefs are going to win, and I believe they are, they have to keep it low and they have to neutralize it. How do they do that? They get to Brock Purdy. They take him out. They make him make mistakes. Brock Purdy is in the biggest game of his life. And again, not to blame Brock Purdy for the loss to the Eagles last year, but the Eagles roughed him up. They bullied him and they literally injured him and took him out of the game. He can be bullied. He can be roughed up. We've seen in this offseason, he can make mistakes. I know this flies in the face of everything I was just saying about Brock Purdy, but I'm just fucking with you like a good broadcaster can. But I think they're going to, Spagnuolo is going to make them run it through. So then you got to look at, right, who scores a touchdown and how do we get like some money off that as well? Well, what the 49ers know the Spagnuolo is going to come for Purdy. They know Purdy's young. They know he can be rattled. So what they're going to do is they're going to run it through Christian McCaffrey. And how many times have we seen that? We know what their game plan is going to be. That's the weakness in the Chiefs. They know that it's coming, but they can't stop him because he's Christian fucking McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey is nailed on for getting a touchdown in this game. Back the house on it. It is easy money. I'm also shocked that I'm only getting evens on Travis Kelce from Paddy Power to score anytime. That is easy money. Of course he's going to score. Of course Taylor Swift is going to. Like, if I could, I'd put money on him scoring in the first quarter. I'm not going to do that. That's crazy. But like, I really think that he's going to score in the first quarter, and you're going to see Tay celebrating, and that's going to create the tension that we then live in for this tight contest. So I'm going to do another double, and I'm going to put McCaffrey and Kelce together for scoring anytime touchdowns. I'm so confident of this pick that I'm even looking at like just packaging the four of them into one big bet builder and just sticking 20 quid on it. You get about 300 quid for that. But again, it is something that we could absolutely see happening. And then I'll add some fun props. Like my always reliable bet on a safety. Just, it's always fun. It's a way you win. My favorite Super Bowl watching and betting moment was the moment after that amazing finale to the Pats Seahawks, and the Pats just had to kneel down in the end zone to ice the game, which of course led to a safety. And then after everyone is celebrating, it's just me and the Woolshead going, yeah.
It only has to happen once. Like, that's all. Like, for it to be the best bet you'll ever make, it only has to happen once. That's got you sorted for the next 10 years.
Exactly. There you go. I'm still talking about this. But yeah, I'm gonna post with full bets on socials coming closer to the day. But yeah, I'm going Chiefs to cover, under bet, and then McCaffrey and Kelce to score.
I love how we've just swapped roles as well. Like I said, usually I would be the one who's going, right, go on, what, like Tom Brady wins. Like every time we talk about Tom Brady wins, that's how it ends. Tom Brady wins. And now the one, like, even though I'll call him the next Tom Brady about 20 times in this podcast, I'm going against Mahomes. Like,
there we go. Okay, well, look, we'll see. One of us is right and one of us is wrong. That's the most fair way. And again, that just speaks to the interesting Super Bowl that it is when you break it down. I'm buzzing for this now. I'm so glad we had this chat, and I hope we helped you guys enjoy it a bit more. Let's touch on some Six Nations. We don't have that much time, but I do want to discuss it because it's an amazing first weekend. I want to kind of just touch on the three matchups, but I want to focus on what we should focus on because we're doing a weird preview of the Six Nations. And again, like, we're previewing it after week one, but we don't really have answers, as any great week one gives us, because we don't know if what we saw means one thing or if it means the other. So that's the way we're going to look at it. The three matchups. France, Ireland, of course, started it off. One of the best Six Nations memory in recent history. Phenomenal. I think we're all nervous with, Johnny Sexton and a new era. Peter O'Mahony's first game as captain. Were Ireland going to be the same team they were walking into the World Cup, or were they going to be a shell themselves? And again, they answered that with flying colours. Was Crowley going to be able to replace Sexton? And he answered it with flying colours, particularly in the second half. So I guess the questions that we have from that are, which are you taking more? And again, obviously, both of these will probably be true to some extent. Do you think we should look at Ireland with Crowley replacing Sexton, or just business as normal? They're still the best team in the world when you kind of weigh things out, not in a World Cup setting, and they've just hit the ground running. Or do you feel that France are the people that actually need to be worried? And that's actually the story that matters when we get to the Six Nations. Of course, Dupont is out chasing his Olympic dreams. So where are you how are you reacting to this? Which way do you lean?